Yes, and then the signals are sent to the muscles in the intestine to move. But for people with irritable bowel syndrome, there probably is a disorder with that axis from the brain, so that instead of moving at this slow rate, it rather moves faster.
Okay.
And sometimes for those who may have the constipation type, instead of moving at this slow rate, it doesn't move. So the thing gets stuck in there, and you feel bloated and like you are constipated for days or hours on end. So it's basically like a clog that is not functioning very well.
Okay. How common is irritable bowel syndrome in Ghana?
It is common. I mean, the number of times people come to the hospital with abdominal stuff, I mean,
and don't know that it's irritable bowel syndrome.
They may not even know it's irritable bowel syndrome. Some of the things we heard is about stresses, right? So I know a certain man who, as soon as he hears bad news, you stand with him, he hears bad news, he says, I'm coming. Then he has to move to the loo. It's straight away. Anything that's stressful, any emotional issues, could just send him to the loo. I have a friend too who's when she's going to have her mens, the first day of her mens, she has to quit work or just absent herself from work because she stays more of the time sitting on the loo the whole day.
Wow.
That is a stressful situation. Yeah. So for some people, it varies for everybody. Somebody has menstrual pain. Hers is not exactly pain, but hers is irritable bowel with a menstrual cycle.
Okay. So the video said that young people, women, are more prone to irritable bowel syndrome. Is that true, and why?
Yes, young people are more prone to irritable bowel syndrome. If somebody doesn't have an irritable bowel, you don't have issues with constipation and diarrhea in your youthful ages, and you are about 50, and you begin to have this irritable bowel, like you're having constipation and diarrhea, which cannot be explained, and probably at that time you are losing a bit of weight, then the doctor will suspect something different. Not irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay.
That could probably mean a tumor, maybe
something
that would be probably a structural disorder rather than a functional disorder. It's again commoner with women because, as we said, stress plays a very important role in the case of irritable bowel syndrome. And every month a woman goes through some kind of stress. Their menstrual cycle is something stressful. And again, being the fact that it is more common in women, it is being thought, studies are being done to see whether the female, being the sex of being a female or the hormones in the female, may also be contributing to a woman having more women having more incidences of irritable bowel syndrome than men.
Okay. All right. So let's go through some of the symptoms, and we've mentioned constipation or diarrhea. We've mentioned abdominal cramps, gas. What else is there?
Yes. So basically, for somebody who has, we all usually have some diarrhea once a while in their lifetime, but for these people is you have this abdominal pain and the cramps, you have sometimes feel bloated. Now sometimes you have diarrhea, frequent diarrhea. You may, or somebody may have constipation all the time, or there are some individuals who may have both alternating diarrhea and constipation. I don't, that one may not be may because alternating diarrhea and then constipation in the same person. And again, the severity of the diarrhea or the symptoms in the irritable bowel syndrome may vary from person to person. And even the same person, the next time you're having irritable bowel, the symptoms, the severity of the symptoms may be different. And sometimes too, for those who may have the diarrhea, the diarrhea may be mixed with mucus. You may also have mucus in your stools. But cardinally, what is cardinal in irritable bowel syndrome, the reason why we said it's not a structural defect but rather a functional defect is that in the case of irritable bowel syndrome, you would not see blood in your stools. So you may have diarrhea, you may have constipation, but you not see blood in the stools. When there is blood in the stools, then it doesn't fall under irritable bowel syndrome. It could be any other thing that the doctor would want to rule out or look out for. So basically, these are the some of the symptoms that you may have. The symptoms may complicate into other things, like if you are always constipated and you always have to go and chim or push, then it could lead to hemorrhoids or piles eventually. Or if you're having diarrhea, constant diarrhea, then it can lead to more malabsorption, and therefore you become malnourished sometimes. But most of the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome, they don't really cause much of problems to the person. Some are mild, and so it doesn't show any physical effect on the person.
All right. Now, what would you do in order to diagnose somebody with irritable bowel syndrome? Is it a simple blood test? Is it something that endoscopy, colonoscopy? Which one is it?
Yes, because we sometimes say that the cause of irritable bowel syndrome is not really known, and we run tests to rule out other things. Mm-hmm. So yes, the doctor want to do a full blood count to see if you are anemic with the irritable bowel syndrome as well, then I have to be looking for other things. Where is the blood going to? Are you having blood in your poo as well?
Yes.
Or maybe we want to take a sample of your stool to see if there's any bacteria in the stool, or protozoa, or even blood in the stool. That will tell me that then I'm not dealing with irritable bowel syndrome. Sometimes we want to do colonoscopy, a scope into your colon right through the rectum and take a picture of inside there and see if there is no Crohn's disease where there's the whole intestinal lining is red with like inflammation, or all the way ulcerations all the way in the bowel. Mm-hmm. If we do that and we don't see all these things, then I'm more going to hinge on irritable bowel syndrome. But as soon as I see a change, then it is not irritable bowel syndrome. So the colonoscopy can be done, other forms of sigmoidoscopy and all these biopsies can be done to rule out other things. If nothing else is found, then we tell you, oh, this is an irritable bowel syndrome, and therefore this is how we are going to help you manage it.
Okay. Let's go into treatment then. Now, if you have irritable bowel syndrome, can you get rid of it? Or is it something that you have to manage?
Yeah, irritable bowel syndrome is more like a lifelong thing. It's a chronic problem. Sometimes we tell you have to learn how to live with it, and the do's and don'ts that you need to look at. We would tell you if that you have noticed that there are certain types of foods that when you eat as well, you get more of these symptoms more often. Yeah. Then have a good food journal or food diary yeah, that you would be able to notice that whenever I take this, I have more of this irritable bowel. Mm-hmm. For example, that some people don't do too well with lactose in milk. So if you're realizing that you take milk and then you have problems, then maybe you would be looking more at taking lactose-free milk. If there are certain spices or there are certain fruits that you eat and you're having problems, then you have to desist from those fruits. Yeah. Again, you realize that when people have constipation, we encourage you to eat more fiber, foods with more fiber. Yeah. But if you're having irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea, you don't need
additional fiber.
Because it will make it worse.
Yeah.
So for the one who has irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea predominant, then we tell you hold on with your fiber foods. But the one who has irritable bowel syndrome with constipation more predominant, we tell you that then increase the fiber in your diet so that you'll be able to have the bulk to move it out. Okay. So we're looking at your dieting, and sometimes we know that there are sometimes that you have infections, post-infection. People have infections and then later may have the bowel getting irritated. So we also say that you can take probiotics to give good bacteria or good germs to the intestine so that the problematic ones cannot stay. Mm-hmm. So probiotics are there that you can look at as a way of also helping. Okay. Then maybe later you look at medications that we can give you to, if you're having the constipation type, maybe when it becomes unbearable, you may recommend some things that have laxative effect that will help you get it out. And then for those who have the cramps and abdominal pain, the antispasmodics, commonly the Buscopan, as people know, that may also help. And then for those who have diarrhea, then the over-the-counter things.
Yes.
But if you do all this and it still doesn't help, you probably need to see the doctor.
See the doctor once again. Okay. Now, there will be certain drugs that could also make your situation worse, like you were saying. For instance, if you were having, the diuretic IBS, and you are given some forms of medication, this could cause constipation, couldn't it?
Yeah. There are some drugs that can cause constipation. So if you have IBS with constipation,
and then taking
it will make it worse. There are some times there are some drugs we call the proton pump inhibitors for those who have gastric ulcers or reflux diseases. Yeah. We would say that for them we try to give them things that would move things out of the stomach quickly, prokinetic drugs. Mm-hmm. So for those people, we tell them that because you have the IBS with diarrhea, if we continue on your proton pump inhibitors, it will make your diarrhea worse.
Okay.
So in all these things, management is not just a matter of self-medication, but you need to be in constant touch with your doctor to know what you need to use. We have also said that people who get stressed, stress, somebody gets so stressed in the workplace and it just gets to the bowel, and it has to go and go to the bathroom. Or somebody has anxiety, extreme anxiety or depression, and all these things can affect the bowel movement. So for some of these people, even some what we call the tricyclic antidepressants do help in the management of.
So that's why in the video I was suggesting counseling as well.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, Doc, I'm going to put you on pause for a moment as we go over to Kevin in the other studio, and I believe we've got some comments on social media about our health topic for this morning, which is irritable bowel syndrome.
Yes, Ben, we have some comments on irritable bowel syndrome, and we asked, how much do you know about it? And let's see, Nambi Patrick says irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, is a chronic gastrointestinal disorder of unknown cause. Common symptoms include abdominal pain cramping or pain, bloating and grassiness, and altered bowel. Let's see here, Emmanuel Martin is saying, well, not much, but it is so painful. Gabriel is saying, I want to know more. Well, I hope you have been educated on more. Don Zigo Emmanuel says it causes abdominal pains and bloating, and it is very serious. Kwabna Frank Onasa says the sore is like peptic ulcer and happens when you feast more because that's a stomach problem. Okay, Emmanuel Martin Oredu is saying it is so irritating and not easy. Theo Song says, I don't even know that there is something like this. I think much education is needed. Well, I hope we have given you all the education you would need in our health segment. Let's see. Yasser Hussein says it causes stomach problems, and Savali Kelvin is asking for more education on that. So that is it for our comment on irritable bowel syndrome. We'll go back to Studio C.
Thank you very much for that, Kevin. All right, Doc, so one more question before we do actually wrap things up. Could IBS be a symptom of another issue, a greater illness that could be dwelling within the human physiology?
Yes, we never say never. There's a law in medicine called Kuvaisi's law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Right.
Right. So anything is possible. You may have irritable bowel syndrome, but it can lead to other issues. Especially, as I said, for those who be having diarrheas and constipations, it can lead to you having ulcers and hemorrhoids or piles, and therefore it may lead to eventual bleeding at the inner region. Or those who are having frequent diarrheas, 3 times in a day or 3 times of 3 bouts in a month for 3 consecutive months, what we call the Rome criteria. It means that you cannot, things cannot stay in, you cannot absorb well. It may eventually lead to, you getting a bit deformed if it continues ad infinitum. Right. So you are careful to also figure out a few things. However, if there's a possibility, if you have a situation where the person may be having this diarrhea and constipation alternating, and again the person begins to lose weight, the person is becoming anemic, begin to bleed from the rectum, or have blood in the stools, then we say that we would want to check for other things, especially as you are aging as well. It could be also a sign of colorectal carcinoma or cancer in the rectum somewhere. So as much as we say that it is not something to worry about, when you are aging and the symptoms are changing, not just from the normal regular diarrhea and constipation, but then you begin to lose weight, you are becoming weaker, and blood in your stools, etc. Then there's also concern.
All right, Doc, I want to thank you once again for coming in, educating us more about irritable bowel syndrome this morning.